When I ordered this lens, I was not confident that I would end up keeping it. But I did decide to keep the lens, and I even added more to my set. Keep watching and I'll tell you why these lenses worked out for me and why they might work for you also. I'm Justin. I'm a photographer in the city of Chicago. I do product photography, portraits, real estate, commercial product videos, and media for a local church. Basically, I do a variety of creative work. I've come to a point now where I really need the fine control of a geared cinema lens, and my photography lenses just aren't providing the functionality that I need. The build quality of the lens seems good actually. The housing of the lens feels like a plastic composite, but it's solid. The older Rokinon lenses I've owned previously had more of a plasticky feel to them and seemed more fragile. A weather sealing gasket has been added to the lens mount. Rokinon is specifically calling this a weather sealed lens mount, so I'm assuming that the lens itself isn't weather sealed, only the lens mount. The focus ring has about 180-degree rotation. It turns smoothly for the most part. There was a slight grittiness while turning the gear when I first received the lens, but that did go away after some use. The gear for the aperture is kind of oddly placed. It's very close to the lens mount. This can make it difficult to mount a motor to the aperture gear, but that will depend on the camera body you're using. I have a Canon EF mount version of the lens, and I'm adapting it to fit my L-mount camera. The adapter extends the lens from the camera body, so this doesn't affect me personally. This test was shot on a Lumix S1R with a 45 megapixel sensor. At T1.5, it's definitely a little soft with aberrations. The corners are much softer and fringing is more pronounced. Longitudinal aberrations are pretty strong, shifting magenta and green. At T2, it's already improving. Sharp in the center with minimal fringing. Corners are still soft, but with reduced fringing. This pattern continues until T5.6, where the lens is sharp across the frame and aberrations are completely gone. In this footage, you can see that the lens is sharp but not overly clinical. This is a good thing in my opinion. Skin textures can be harsh at high resolutions. This isn't a high contrast scene, so I'm not seeing any chromatic aberrations. In this second clip, I can't see any noticeable differences in image quality versus full frame. This shot is in micro four thirds. It's definitely softer, but the image quality is still decent. If you zoom in, there are definitely noticeable chromatic aberrations. Barrel distortion is present, but easy to correct in post. My correction settings in DaVinci Resolve are posted on the screen. Vignetting is present wide open at T1.5, but the effect is not strong enough to be a problem for me personally. After T2, it's pretty minimal, and vignetting is gone by T4. In this example, I used a 150 watt LED monolight to simulate a backlit subject. I really like the flare on this lens. The flare has a nice bloom, and the flare pattern is very pleasing in my opinion. The lens flare has an almost vintage lens quality, but it doesn't completely wash out the details in your subject. The lens flare is present, but it's actually well controlled. The bokeh at T1.5 is round only in the center of the frame. It quickly becomes cat's-eyed toward the outer edges. At T2.0, the bokeh already starts to lose its shape, taking on a more hexagonal pattern. This pattern becomes more pronounced as you continue to close the aperture, eventually shifting to a blooming star pattern. The focus breathing is quite strong on this lens. It zooms in and out when you rack focus. I could see this being very distracting and drawing attention to almost every focus below the camera. I own the Lumix S Pro 24-70 f2.8. This lens has very minimal breathing and is very sharp. It also has very beautiful bokeh. Here's a clip for comparison. I decided to keep this lens after using it to shoot some product videos. I needed a lens with focus gears so I could get accurate focus pulls. My photography lenses are focused by wire, so the focus ring isn't mechanically coupled to the lens. I can program it to operate with a linear response and even set the focus ring to a full 360-degree rotation. In spite of all the high-tech options, I still was having difficulty getting repeatable and precise focus pulls. So as far as I'm concerned, a manual cine lens in this scenario is the only way to go. After doing some shoots with this lens, I have decided that I actually love the image that it produces. The lens isn't perfect, but for video work, you don't actually need lenses that are optically perfect. Some character to the image is actually a good thing, and that's why many people, including myself, shoot on vintage lenses. Rokinon has improved the lens, but there are some issues that will be deal breakers for some people. The two biggest flaws in these lenses are the focus breathing and the bokeh. The focus breathing is really pronounced, and this was something that was actually making me consider returning the lens. I'm personally not a fan of the bokeh, but that's subjective, and it wasn't really a deal breaker for me. The chromatic aberrations are best controlled above T2.8 on a full-frame camera, and for me that's good enough. Chromatic aberrations are present at fast apertures on lenses that are way more expensive than these, so I actually feel that Rokinon's doing pretty good here. These lenses are having no problem resolving 8K resolution on a full-frame sensor, so they should be plenty sharp on crop sensors at lower resolutions. You will see more pronounced chromatic aberrations since crop sensors tend to exaggerate the flaws of full-frame lenses. So I do recommend this new line of Rokinon lenses if you are on a budget and can live with the focus breathing. If there are any other DSX lenses that you would like a review on, please leave a message in the comments below, and if I have it, I'll make another video and I'll put it up. If you found this video helpful and you would like to see more content, please like and subscribe.